the whole of Scunthorpe basically was built on the fact there was iron here. It started as little villages, it finished up as a town.
And it was shift work, the same as the men. I mean, and then if the sirens went in the night, we had to go to the shelters. So some of us used to pray for the sirens to go, so we didn't have to do any work. But it was very tiring. I mean, when you work at nights as well, it's not very good. But that's mostly what I used to do, was just working the rolls to make the different shapes for the. I was on finishing when the one I took at the end of the bridge, mine was finished for the next one, and then they used to go down a bank into where they used to put them all on the lorries to take away wherever anybody had ordered them.
There were a lot of women working, certainly amongst the sort of the lower hand type jobs.
It's very diverse. I think working on the steelworks, you're busy all day. You can have breakdowns or you can maintenance. It's very safe, and go into jobs and you make sure that you've got everything in place and everyone is looked after. I believe that it's a teamwork, and I think the ethic of especially Boss Plant where I'm at is very teamwork and very people orientated and looking after each other.
We had, as I say, of the apprentices in that room, there were 3 girls and 4 boys, and that was pretty average, I'm sure. And when I went into other departments, there was always at least one girl amongst in the mix, yes.
They started with the ingots, and then they used to make it less and less, and then it came into a proper pattern, which sort of steel they wanted, you know. There was angles, flats, pilings, all those different kind of shapes, and that was our job on the bridge above the ingots. So that's how we used to get burnt, and then they put a glass front up, so it didn't get burnt. We used to get your hair on fire, and it wasn't very nice. It was very hot. We only could have somebody take over every so often, you know, so you were sweating.
And I just walked in, and it's just like a cloud of dust, heat coming out and flames coming out, and all these cranes going and like these big ladles, and I thought, what on earth am I doing here? And like you're walking through thick piles of dust, and I mean they have people cleaning it all day and shoveling it up, and it's just you just can't control it.
Well, I started on the 13th of April 1974 in the heavy section mill, and I started like everybody else does at the bottom job, where I was just marking bars. Very simple. First bar is number 1, went up to 999, then it went back to number 1.
I basically started as an apprentice straight from school at 16. I progressed throughout North Lindsay and then went through Heta, and then they sponsored me through university. I started on the Dawes Lane coke ovens as an engineer, went up to team leader as an electrical engineer, maintenance, breakdowns, and then I went into the project department at Boss Steel Making, and looked after bringing back vessel 3 into operation so that it can be a 3-vessel operation rather than a 2-vessel operation and have more steel coming through the plant. I then moved on to steel making cranes, which is maintenance, breakdowns, and any projects or improvements that we can do on the cranes.
So at the moment, my day-to-day work is I'm on the tools. Just as any other apprentice, the team leader will give out the job to the fitters, and I'll work with those fitters to sort the problem. So it can be problem solving, it can be swapping components, and it can be a broad range of mechanical problems that need fixing. And on varied machinery that go from massive hundreds of tons to just a little item, a tiny little gearbox that does a very small job, but all part of the process.
We went to test carrying, backside and front side driving. Then I went crane driving and did that for 20 odd years. Then I got onto the circle pits where I used to help to heat the steel up, 12-ton ingots for the rolling mill. And then in 1996-7 they invested in a 27 million state-of-the-art walking beam furnace. And I was put on that project from day one until the mill shut down, then went on another project and moved it to the medium section mill. There I stayed and been retired now 5 years.
What I wanted from school was I wanted a trade. I saw a lot of people that was getting made redundant and struggling and saying, well, what can I do? And it was, you need a trade to fall back on. And Steelworks, I mean, British Steel, they massively support you. And there was nothing when I said, oh, I'd love to go to uni. They said, do you think that you could handle it? Would happily support you, will sponsor you through it. And the support and, you know, the time to do your uni work if needed, and the assignments that you got from uni, how they'd say fit it into work for you. It was just, yeah, the support from them is incredible. I'd recommend it.
So the working conditions on site are so varied depending on where you work. So there can be, if you're at the Boss plant, it'll be dirty, dust, and you'll be working in, and sometimes quite hard graft, or you can be in an area where you're doing very fine measurements, and if you work at the labs or central labs, you'd be doing the fine testings of like materials and stuff. So there's a massive range. So and rod mill, during the week they'll be working on gearboxes and refurbishing them, and the fitters will teach you how to do each step. And then at the end of the week they have a shutdown, so you'll be out on the mill in the grease and working on all that and getting things replaced and fixed and ready to go for the rest of the week.
Went in normally in a batch at the end of the year, because that was school leaving time, you see. Well, late summer. I was the odd one out because I went in at the beginning of winter. Normally what they would do is split the apprentices into small handleable groups, half a dozen, and they would be escorted all the way around the whole premises. The steelworks, the ironworks, the rolling mills, everything. And we were taken around various departments. Well, I mean, the steelworks I knew inside out by this time. The ironworks I knew inside out by this time, but never mind. Went round with them. And they took us to the rolling mills. Now, the rolling mills, there are two kinds. There's the plate mills, which obviously makes big steel plates. There was also a rod and wire mill, which I didn't have much to do with. The other one was the section mill. This makes girders, angles, stuff for stanchions, supports. You start with a big chunk of steel, a big billet of steel, red hot, and it goes through the rolls, and the roll has a series of sections across it, and it's the same section in decreasing size. So you put it through the first one, and it turns round and it comes back on the rollers are driven, you see. It comes back, and then some pegs come up, shift it across, and it goes trundling through the second one and the third one. So all the time it's getting squashed down into shape, but increasing in length dramatically. And on this introduction, we were watching something like 3 by 1.5 channel or girder, probably girder. Now it starts off as a 6-foot billet, but it finishes up about 120 feet long, and the roll bed went way out under the road, under the main road, across the main road, and it all went trundling out there, and then got moved across the wall, came trundling back in again. And we watched this, and it was very impressive as it went past. And then we were taken up onto the roll bridge. There's a bridge over everything, and as this last one came through, all of a sudden, instead of being a long straight thing, it was a great twisted mass flailing and flying about like wet spaghetti. It went everywhere. It went down the walkway, it wrapped itself around, I mean literally wrapped itself around vertical supports. Everybody shut down, and they discovered that what happened, that the posts which come up and move them across, one of them had stuck. hadn't gone down again to let the next lot through, and it stuck up, and it had run straight in, buckled completely. Well, I mean, steel at that temperature, which is probably over 1,000 degrees, it is way flexible. It went all over the place. And as we were looking out there, I said to the gentleman who was taking us around, I said, that could have been nasty. I said, we were standing down there just now, where that's just gone, and 2 girls promptly went poof and fell down in a faint.
One late shift, he come to me and says, could I move a barrel of 45-gallon of hydraulic oil to our nodding donkey? The nodding donkey is a machine, when the ingots come down, it just pushed it off onto the rat rollers so it could go to the cogging mill. So I said, yeah, jumped on the circle crane, thinking I can use this because it's quite easy. Barrel was on its side, grabbed hold of it, and any circle crane driver does, you press your hoist and you put the power gripping on. I shouldn't have put the power gripping on, but I did. Then all of a sudden, as it did, it just crushed it. 45 litres come hurtling out, covered him from head to toe. And I just sat there going, oh my God, no. And his jumper was hanging nearly to the floor down this hydraulic oil.
There was one time where picked up by the person in charge of the training centre, because you do it the first year at the training centre, which is where you get taught the basic skills and do some of the qualifications for the apprenticeship. And we were picked up, all right, we're going to go, we're going to go meet a local labour leader. Anyway, we move into this room and wait for them, and they come through, and it's not a local Labour leader, it was Jeremy Corbyn, so the leader of the Labour Party. So it did a bit of a discussion with him and shook hands, and an interview with the Look North on what it was like being an apprentice at the Steelworkers.
And one day we were going to have a whole system run, the whole thing. Okay? We've got everything started in the morning, we've got them all up to temperature, pressures are all right, great. Right, they said, we'll have an early lunch. So all the chemical engineers dashed off to lunch and left me. All I'd got to do was to go along the boards for each section, check the temperature's right, pressure's right, nothing to it. I thought I was the only person in the building. And then suddenly, all the pressure, in the board I was facing, all the pressure indicators, which were a U-shaped tube with coloured paraffin in, and as the pressure was measured against atmosphere. So one side was open and the other side was a pipe from the piece of apparatus. So the pressure was down there, and it pushed it up, 2 inches, 3 inches pressure, whatever. And all of a sudden, all these paraffins went straight out, empty. And all the temperature gauges went over. Oh my God. And then there was a series of bangs, and the explosion doors on each of these towers blew out. Now, the explosion doors were very deliberately put there. They were a very, very lightweight brick. I don't know what it was made from, what sort of clay. You could float it on water easily. It was like balsa wood. No heavier, no harder. I mean, you could smash them across your knee. All of these had blown out. Flames. Yeah. So I started going along the board, shutting all the gas taps down. It wasn't having any effect. Nothing. So I thought, I'll have to turn the main off. Went round to the main to find that I wasn't the only person in there. There was a painter. Now his job was to go along all the pipes we had in there, and each pipe was different colour coded according to what the service was. And there was a nice big fat one like so, with a sort of ochre yellow colour, and that was our gas supply. So where it came into the building, there was a big fat valve with a nice big handle on top, which you used to reduce the pressure from about 30 pounds per square inch outside to 4 inside. And then your little valves coped with 4 pounds per square inch fine. This gentleman, to do with the painting, decided he ought to do the valve as well. So he unscrewed the valve full bore, let 35 pounds per square inch gas through into everything, and started painting. When he heard the bangs, he dropped his paintbrush and ran. Just as I'm winding it down, got myself covered with wet paint, back came the chemical engineers. What have you done? What have I done? No, it's such a simple thing, and yeah.
We used to go to the Queen's on Rowland Road, and the landlady and the landlord knew who everybody was. As soon as you walked in the door, there'll be beer there with beer mats on top with your name on. Yeah, one for him, that. And we used to have one chap, Mr. Chapman, God rest his soul, taught me everything I knew about soakering. He walked into pub, she would pull the first pint, and he didn't drink bitter or light, he drank something called Old Tom, it's like Guinness, and he can drink the first pint faster than she can pour it. And he would have 4 straight away, no stops.
I do feel proud to be a steelworker. For Scunthorpe it is a big thing. I mean, I think in everyone's family there'll be one person that works at Steelworks, or my husband works at Steelworks, my granddad works at Steelworks, my brother works at Steelworks. It's a massive thing, and without it, I don't think, there'd be nothing for us really.
My first pay was £1.18 a week. That's £1.90p nowadays. It went up to £2 when I got to 18.
I've shaped the area in, say, Scunthorpe. For the good or for the better. The wages have increased, so the money in the town's good. But it's all technology of what's shaped Scunthorpe now.
I hope that Steelworks progresses and can carry on and provide a future for me and my family, because I can't imagine leaving it.